Around 60,000 years ago, somewhere in the Near East, modern humans and Neanderthals met for the first time. Our ancestors would have immediately recognized the Neanderthals as a kind of human, different but familiar. Not only did they share many physical traits with us, but their large brain suggests they were highly intelligent as well. In fact, these similarities were enough to prompt the two species to breed together. However, what they didn't know was that in just 20 or so thousand years, one of them would go extinct. But why? How did an animal so similar to us become extinct? Well, today we'll go through each of the possibilities to determine what caused their extinction. However, before we can explore the possibilities, we need to answer a seemingly simple question. When did they go extinct? Neanderthals were distributed across Europe and the Near East, with smaller pockets in Central Asia. One thing we know for sure is that as their distribution shrunk, modern humans took control of the open areas. This is proven by the rapid switch from Neanderthal to Homo sapien weapons, which started roughly 41,000 years ago. Whilst they had disappeared from northwestern Europe by around 40,600 years ago, they survived much longer on the Iberian Peninsula. It's been hypothesized that the Ebro River served as a geographic barrier, which prevented modern humans from crossing over. However, this would only be the case if we were the catalyst for their decline. Some of the last known Neanderthal remains found in Gibraltar were dated to around 28,000 years ago. However, more recent analysis suggests they likely disappeared between 40,000 and 37,000 years ago. So now that we've traced when the Neanderthals went extinct, it's time to find out when us Homo sapiens arrived in Europe. The oldest fossil evidence of modern humans in Europe comes from the Mandarin caves in southern France. Teeth found in this subterranean shelter date to as far back as 59,000 years, with a minimum date of 52,000 years ago. DNA evidence, however, shows that interaction between modern humans and Neanderthals goes much further back. Traces in our DNA show that humans and Neanderthals began breeding with each other between 100 and 120,000 years ago in the Middle East. For a long time, it was believed that modern humans had far superior technology and intelligence, making it impossible for Neanderthals to compete, and thus the leading theory was that Neanderthals just couldn't compete with us. But in 1984, a new theory was proposed. One that suggested modern humans as we know them independently evolved from multiple archaic human species. This idea, known as the multi-regional hypothesis, then goes on to state that Homo erectus, heidelbergensis, and Neanderthals continue to breed together, blurring the lines. It might sound crazy today, but scientists had reasons for believing it. For instance, Homo erectus had shovel-shaped incisors, a trait which is much more common in areas that Homo erectus once lived. However, we now know that the gene that caused this trait was selected for a different reason, because it actually helped infants absorb more vitamin D from milk, a useful adaptation in the dark winters of northern Siberia. As scientists dug deeper, they found that the out of Africa theory explained the true origin of our species. As proven by mitochondrial DNA, all humans alive today share a common ancestor who lived in Africa over 200,000 years ago. This idea led researchers to yet another possible theory explaining the Neanderthals' disappearance. Because in 2010, it was discovered that non-African populations carry about 1–2% Neanderthal DNA, meaning it's not unreasonable to argue that Neanderthals simply bred into us. With our much higher population density, if our two species combined into one, most Homo sapien characteristics would be preserved, but without solid evidence, these ideas remain speculation. That's why many researchers still argue that climate change was the culprit. The extinction of the Neanderthals seems to coincide with a period of intense seasonality, where winters became extremely cold. In the past, conditions of similar severity have been known to decimate modern humans. In the past, these cold spikes would have taken place hundreds of times, with the population quickly rebounding. But this time, it's possible that modern humans colonized the empty areas faster than Neanderthals. Our much lower caloric need would have given us the advantage in times of scarcity. However, by then the Neanderthal population may have already been dwindling, as around 40,000 years ago near what is now Naples, the Campanian eruption took place. It's estimated that temperatures could have been reduced by 4 degrees Celsius for an entire year. Yet, this is unlikely to have wiped them out completely. But maybe it wasn't climate or competition. Maybe it was something much smaller, something microscopic. It's been speculated that once the two species encountered one another, Homo sapiens introduced African diseases to which the Neanderthals had no immunity. We have seen similar events in recent history, such as in the Americas. But with Neanderthals and humans, the separation between them was hundreds, not tens of thousands of years. Recent evidence has cast doubt on these ideas though, as Neanderthals are known to have had a strong adaptive immune system, but one disease was possibly strong enough to wipe them out. Among certain remote tribes in New Guinea, cannibalism was a common funeral practice up until the 1960s. Scientists managed to trace a disease known as Kuru to the consumption of prions in human brains. Before this discovery, hundreds of people were dying a year. Most human populations today contain a gene which makes them immune to Kuru, allowing them to safely cannibalize. Not only does this indicate that cannibalism was extremely widespread, but that other human species didn't have this immunity. Neanderthals are known to have been cannibals, so if they ate a human brain, the Kuru outbreak could have spread fast enough to kill off the entire species. Survival for any animal, however, is about just one thing: what you eat. And in that regard, Neanderthals may have been at a disadvantage. In their extremely cold environment, Neanderthals got the majority of their caloric need. This diet could have put them at risk for various reasons. For one, when animals like Paleoloxodon went extinct, they may have been left with no food. Secondly, their rivals, modern humans, could digest cooked starch. This adaptation allowed them to take advantage of roots and tubers, easy to gather, nutrient-dense foods. Not only did this mean they could spend less time worrying about eating and more time innovating and exploring, but it also meant that they were more adaptable and less susceptible to sudden environmental changes. Early modern humans' prey were mainly small animals who are less prone to fluctuations in population. Additional advantages we had were a larger gene pool, division of labor based on gender, and possibly most crucially, domesticated dogs. If our species was in fact accompanied by canines at the time, it would have allowed us to hunt more easily and sense danger coming. And then there's the most unsettling possibility of all, one that suggests Neanderthals weren't just outcompeted, they were eliminated. Judging by human history, it is possible that humans saw Neanderthals as competitors and engaged in violent conflicts with them. Humans and Neanderthals competed over the same shelters, plants, and prey. Because since their humble origins, humans had begun to hunt bigger and bigger prey. Seeing Neanderthals as competitors, it may have been advantageous to seek out and kill them. In this case, it's unlikely that Neanderthals would have sat around letting themselves be killed, and so war would spiral out of control. Modern humans had a clear advantage. Their long-range hunting tools like bows and spears were very useful in fighting. In fact, one of the best-known Neanderthal specimens, known as Shandahar III, died of a stab wound which was caused by a projectile weapon. The 40-year-old male who lived 50,000 years ago in what is now Iraq would have been at the frontier of any human-Neanderthal conflict. Though, of course, we can't rule out that the attack was from another Neanderthal. Whether Neanderthals went extinct due to competition, disease, climate change, diet, or war, we may never know for certain. Most likely, it was a combination of factors. So let me know in the comments which factor you believe played the biggest role. I personally think the Kuru theory is the most plausible. And while this is the first video I have made on extinct humans, I have made loads of others on other extinct animals, such as this one about every extinct animal from Central America.